Most Bears fans, I think, and rightfully so, have complained about General Manager Ryan Pace largely ignoring the edge rush position in that 3-4 defense of the Bears over the past few drafts. I would certainly agree with that assessment to a degree, although you might also counter with saying, how many first-round picks do you need to invest in it? Because you technically invested a top 10 pick in 2016 to take Leonard Floyd, and that didn't work out. Then you invested 2 additional first-round picks in the 2019 and 2020 drafts in order to actually get a legit edge rusher in Khalil Mack. Now, that's 3 first-round picks in a 5-year span invested in one area of the defense. It's a valid comeback. Now, you would say you look at successful teams that run the 3-4, they have some depth at that edge rush position, what the Bears have sorely lacked. One way to have that is to continually find reinforcements in the draft, which Ryan Pace has largely deferred on the importance of. He just hasn't paid much attention to it. Kylie Fitz certainly does not count. So I think for a lot of us, there was a suspicion at some point in time in this draft, even with them going out and letting Leonard Floyd go, but bringing in Robert Quinn, giving him big money, that they were going to invest in the position at some point, and they ultimately did with the selection of Trevis Gipson, 5th rounder out of Tulsa. They did invest something in the position and not a 7th round pick. Now, one thing I want to call out here really quickly is this really dumb belief, this really dumb assertion held by NFL people that trading a 4th round pick in the next draft has the same value as a 5th round pick in this draft. Just because it's a year away, in no way, shape, or form does that make any realistic sense whatsoever, other than if you're a complete and total impatient moron like Ryan Pace. That makes no sense. This is dumb as when you've seen in the past at times, teams have given up a future 1st round pick to trade into the 2nd round to take somebody. I'm trying to think of somebody who did that before. Wasn't it the Carolina Panthers did that years back with Everett Brown? How'd that work out for him? Then, if I remember correctly, didn't Bobby Beathard, when he flew off the deep end in his time in San Diego, didn't he do that once for a wide receiver that was horrible? Like, you don't do that. And you shouldn't be in the business of trading away future higher picks to get a lower pick now. It's like going up to an adult and saying, you can have $50 right now, no strings attached. Do whatever you want with it. Don't have to do anything for it. I will give you $50. Or if you wait even a week, I will give you somewhere between $100 to $200, depending on a couple of conditions. But no matter what, guaranteed to have more value. You will at least double your value. Most logical people would say, I'm going to guarantee double my money and potentially have the possibility to make more if I wait a week. Why would I take the $50 now, even if I was kind of desperate for it? Like, this is kids' crap. It's like Ryan Pace is the kid let loose in the candy store with his allowance and he can't control himself. Hey, I want this video game, but I want this frickin' now and later. I want this gobstopper. I want this jawbreaker, and I want it right now. This is a dumb assertion. A 4th round pick next year is a 4th round pick next year. And no matter how low that 4th round pick is, it will still ultimately be higher than the 5th round pick in terms of overall number and position that the Bears drafted Trevis Gipson at this year. It's dumb. Anyways, moving past that rant, let's talk about the prospect, because a lot of you are not that familiar with him, may not know much about him, may want him to be something, may not be that certain, you don't really know. Well, I can tell you that there is intrigue there for me with this kid. There is certainly upside. I look at what he brings to the table. He's got a good size and quickness combination. He's got good size and length for an edge rusher, especially in the 3-4. He's 6'3", 260 plus pounds. He's got decent length on him. He's got a pretty explosive burst, 1st and 2nd step. I would be a little concerned from a speed standpoint in terms of if you were deploying him a lot in coverage. I don't know how great his speed is, but when I talk about his actual functional 1st and 2nd step as an edge rusher trying to get around and bend the edge, he's got enough of that to be able to hang at the NFL level. When you talk about him in terms of finishing plays and tackling, this is a kid with 8 career forced fumbles. He engulfs ball carriers, easily brings them down. And he's got active hands and has a good feel for swiping at the quarterback's hands, making it hard for quarterbacks, bringing him some challenges when it comes to ball protection. So you look at a guy, he gets on the ball carrier, he can overwhelm them, he can engulf them, and he is a threat to force that ball loose, which a lot of us as Bears fans are going to love out of this kid. He's also got, I think, really good awareness and instincts where, yes, he's raw, and we're going to talk about that rawness there in a minute. His instincts and awareness are actually, I think, pretty good. He's able to diagnose running plays before they develop, shoots the gap effectively, and he's really, really good at properly playing and recognizing and reading RPOs. Like, he was really, really good. I looked at the Michigan State game, for example. He was really, really good at that. It was really surprising. And as much as you see that run in the NFL nowadays, like, you want an edge rusher that's not going to be bewildered and befuddled every single time a team runs RPO on him. Like, he's a guy that reads it and reads it really well. And he's also got a good motor and effort level as a pass rusher. He's really scrappy. He fights hard. He plays hard. Just, you'll watch him, and the more you watch him on tape, you start to like him more and more. So I can certainly understand why the scouting staff for the Bears may have fallen in love with this kid. They may have wanted to trade away a future fourth-round pick, as foolish as that is, to be able to get into the fifth round to get this kid now. Because you look at some of these traits, you look at some of these characteristics, these are the types of guys that you want to gamble on in a day number 3. Now, he is far from a perfect prospect, which is why he was available where he was in round number 5. His pass rush arsenal lacks secondary and counter rush moves. He really seems to lack kind of a consistent pass rush plan. He could do an okay job of converting speed to power, but he's not overwhelmingly strong, overwhelmingly big. So you get into the NFL, how effectively is that going to work? He's got a spin move. He's got some moves that he flashes here and there, but in terms of piecing multiple moves together, in terms of being able to counter, he's going to need work. His run defense, while he's really good in terms of finishing plays as a tackler, he gets off balance and pushed off his spot consistently. He just doesn't hold up that well, and I wouldn't exactly say he does a great job of setting the edge. He runs himself out of the play at times with his aggressiveness, so it's kind of a twofold thing. On the one hand, you love the feel and the instincts for being able to anticipate and shoot gaps, but there are also times it comes in too hot and heavy, and he will overshoot the play, and that aggressiveness can bite him and the defense in the ass, and as a result, he could leave a gap behind him that is wide freaking open. He struggles to get off of blocks. He's kind of high cut in terms of his body type, struggles to maintain leverage at times, gets a little high, struggles to get off of power blocks in particular. Like, he fights and he tries, but you can see that the overall skill set to be able to counter and adjust, readjust, reposition just isn't there. He's going to need a lot of work on his technique to improve. Now, in his defense, as I talk about his coverage ability, you know what the Bears most likely they're going to be envisioning him as a 3-4 edge rusher, which is where he should be. He wasn't asked to do it in college because somebody at Tulsa thought that he should be a 3-4-5 technique. I don't know why you would look at him and think that. Like, you should be trying to get the most out of this kid. The most you get out of this kid is you play him as some type of edge rusher, some type of rover, some type of something. Playing him with his hand in the dirt in a 3-4 was just dumb. And ultimately, I think hurt his draft stock by at least 1, if not multiple rounds. I do worry about him in coverage, though. Like, does he have enough speed and agility to really work well in coverage, especially in man situations? I don't know about that. I saw enough short area burst and quickness that makes me think he could hang as an edge rusher. But if you talk about an all-around type of guy, I just don't know if it's there. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just not saying it is because I did not see it. And we don't really have a lot of evidence of it based off of his college film. But when I look at this kid, like, I'm intrigued. I watched the Michigan State game, and he had himself some moments. He got to Lewerke a couple of times. Granted, Michigan State's offensive line, not exactly very good, but he got a sack on Lewerke, forced fumble. Like, you're talking about a kid that was flashing, and he was flashing really well against a higher level of competition, so to speak. And those are the types of things you look for, like in bigger games against stronger opponents. How did he do? And I thought he held up really, really well, actually. And some of those strengths really showed out well. That great burst, he's got an ability to bend the edge, dip his hip a little bit, get low. For a high-cut guy, I was actually impressed with that. That burst, he comes quickly, tenaciously. He can make plays on the ball. He's got a natural feel for the game that surprised me a little bit. Like, I liked him. I did like him. And watching him, I'm actually pleased with the Bears being able to get a kid with this level of talent and this level of upside, as raw as he is, in the 5th round like they did, even though I'm not in love with giving up a future 4th round pick to do so. When I think about him, this is all about projectable traits. And his projectable trait says, worst case scenario, he's going to be a great number 3 edge rusher for you that spells Quinn and Mack, which is a critical role in this Bears defense, let's face it. Long-term upside may potentially be as a second starter, like he plays opposite Khalil Mack. He has that level of upside. I don't know if he truly gets there because he does, again, need a lot of work. But there certainly is enough here to wet the whistle. There certainly is enough here to say, okay, I kind of like this kid. And when I look at him, he kind of reminds me a little bit. I wanted to say Matthew Judon, and there are moments where he flashes a little bit of Judon-like skills. He reminds me more maybe of Dorrance Armstrong Jr., if you remember him coming out of Kansas. He's played out of position. They had him with his hand in the dirt, and I wouldn't exactly say he lit the NFL world on fire, but there's some type of balance between some of the flashes of what Judon could do and some of the concerns that I had about Dorrance Armstrong Jr. That said, I look at Trevis Gipson. I ended up putting an early 4th round grade on him. I'd actually say this was a really solid pick for the Bears. If anything, they got a bit of a value, perhaps a bit of a steal. I think they did. And, it may take a while to see it, but Bears fans may like what they see out of this kid in the future.